Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Oh yeah, this has been a long-awaited release. Let's go ahead and get into it. Today we're unboxing, reviewing, and demoing the Noel Gallagher ES-355. If you're not familiar with him, he's most well known from the band Oasis. You know, big hit songs like Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, among all these other ones. Gibson had recently did an acoustic signature model for him as a J150 that we documented in this episode, and those things sold out like crazy. I mean, they're worth twice as much as they were brand new. So Gibson was like, I think we might have found our new Slash. So anyways, here in late 2022, release date of August 30th, we have the new ES-355, which is based on his #1 electric guitar that he's well known for using. Kind of some interesting history behind this particular model is it's the guitar behind the breakup of Oasis. Back in 2009, during a Paris show, he was having a squabble with his brother, and somehow the guitar ended up getting busted up. I mean, the whole neck snapped off. Not only was that the end of that guitar, but also the end of the band. However, a couple of years later, it did get fixed, and then it was just recently sold here in 2022 for a whopping sum of $400,000. But apparently that wasn't his #1 one that got destroyed, it was his #2. The one that they're trying to reissue this time is a 1960 ES-355. When he bought it in 1997, it was deemed too nice to play, so it was initially only meant to be a collector's piece, until it finally made it in the stage in the early 2000s a couple of years later, and has just remained in constant use ever since. So thankfully, it wasn't his #1 that was taken out. So due to the recent sale, due to how iconic of a guitar this is, Gibson decided to reissue this. They're only making 200 of them. They're $10,000 a piece. Brand new anyways, who knows what the used market's going to do. But now it's time we crack into this puppy. There's a lot of people excited for this one, so I hope it lives up to all the expectations. So far, that is a really nice, like, dark burgundy wine red color. This is looking pretty sweet here. So you're going to notice it's got a Bigsby, so you're either going to love that or not. It also has a Veritone, like we were just talking about on the Epiphone BB King Lucille. And yep, just now starting to get a whiff of that fresh lacquer on this one. It's got the scent, and yes, it's got the look. We'll take a look at the case candy here in a minute, but I mean, we just need to appreciate this for what it is. These are actually Murphy Lab aged guitars. It might not look like they did too much on the front, and I'm actually a little bit appreciative of that, but the back is where things get interesting, especially the neck. It's kind of like that last one we had just documented, the Sergio Les Paul, where they just really took the finish off. I would say they even took it off even more so on this one, but that's like the extent of the super aging job. It's got an interesting, really rough feel to it, but at the same time, it's like an ultra satin, but just with like a little bit of texture. But what's really scary about this is all the wear areas perfectly match my hand as well. So it feels like, you know, a guitar that I've been playing a lot. But as far as the rest of the aging, it's just very tasteful finish checking. I mean, we've seen some kind of tacky looking finish checking before. We've seen some good ones. So far, I would say this is one of the better ones. Like, they didn't go too over the top, and I really appreciate that. I got lucky, my friends at Bizarre Guitar down in Reno, Nevada, they were able to hook me up, get this thing on launch day, so we didn't have to wait too long. But I'm noticing there's like some dings back here that had been filled in. We saw that on the Jerry Cantrell aged models, so that just must be something based on one of his particular guitars. But this thing is definitely checked all over. Doesn't look like we have any serial numbers on our headstock or any type of signing. We've just got the serial number on a sticker in the sound hole. Man, I'm kind of sad that they didn't have Gallagher sign this somewhere, because, I mean, this is a premium price for this guy, right? $10,000 We just recently had the Chuck Berry 70s 355 reissue, and these guys were only $8,000 brand new. So I think Gibson learned their lesson on those J150s when they just exploded in value, that they needed to up the ante in price on these guys a bit. But you can tell the finish is way different. This is a really nice dark Merlot color, where this is definitely that nice aged cherry. I mean, it's a night and day difference here. This one has like the 70s volute, whereas our new one here does not, because again, this is like a 70s reissue, and this is like the 60s reissue. But Chuck came with a cool hat. What does this guy come with? Better be pretty cool for $2,000 extra. Right away, sleeping underneath the guitar, you have this black envelope. So let's open it up, see what's inside. You'll notice that they just have a sticky thing right here that you could seal it with, instead of the things that could scratch the guitar. But okay, looks like we have a lyric sheet here to one of his songs, reading "What a Life." Now, this isn't actually, he wrote this out for every single one. It's a photocopy, just like they did with his J150. Well, that's pretty nice case candy. But now let's check the things in this. We've got the all-important silica packet. We've got an optional amber switch tip if you don't like the white one that comes stock on the guitar. Case keys. Typical custom shop paperwork. New tiny pre-packed checklist also making its way to custom shop now. Since I'm recording this on release date, I'm going to have to wait until I can see all the other ones, because I know they only made 200, but so far it doesn't look like they numbered them in any particular way unless they started at a certain one. But here's what's really interesting. Look at the date on this, 5/2/22. They had these things ready and available. That's why I'm calling this one Gibson's worst kept secret, because some dealers accidentally leaked these out into the wild at least a month before they were supposed to have. So that kind of forced their hand to let Noel tell everybody, yeah, you can expect these on the 30th, because the cat was kind of out of the bag. But we got the vintage reissue strings, all the other good stuff. Oh man, Gibson's extra generous. A second silica packet. And then a pretty typical COA booklet. However, it's damaged straight from the factory. Like, it's got a crushed spine. Like, it didn't get completely formed at the factory. What's up with that? Maybe it's a little special in here. Okay, we get a picture of Noel playing the guitar and the particular serial number. Mine is 92600. At the time of recording, the lowest serial number I found was A92384. And since mine is A92600, that the numbers just aren't going in order and they're skipping a few in between. Awesome, but so not signed on the guitar is probably due to it was too difficult to have 200 of these shipped to wherever he is in the world at this particular time and then shipped back to the US and then shipped all over the world again. But I'm excited what is in our little black baggie here. Looks like a very nice real leather strap, probably similar to what he uses. So how would I rate this case candy? 7 out of 10. I mean, the strap is cool and lyrics are cool. It's better than some of the other ones, but it's no hat. And as far as the case goes, it's just your standard lift-in reissue style one, pink interior, double neck rest. The really crappy clasp latches, and the one good one. Trying to stay authentic to the 1960 vintage here. And if that's more than you want to spend on a guitar, that's alright. Epiphone has you covered. They also released a Noel Gallagher Riviera model for about $900. Not exactly the same, but still has a cool factor to it. So to learn the inner details of this guitar, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench, take an individual look at its parts and specs, and then we will get to that playing demo. Inside the Noel Gallagher 355, let's check out our pickups. So these are unpotted pickups, which means they might squeal, but it also gives them a different tone, but they're custom buckers. Take a second to appreciate the aging job on here. I mean, pretty much all the gold has been worn off of these things. Then you flip it over to the back, you can see the decal is missing on this one. That's also the case on the bridge pickup, but you can at least vaguely see where it was. Sometimes that happens out of the factory, so some of these might have it, other ones might not. Could just be part of their whole aging job that they thought that'd be cool to do. As far as within the circuit, our unpotted custom buckers are 7.98 in the bridge, which is about right, and 7.82 in the neck. And just for fun, 3.95 in the center position. And then you can mess around with your veritone, but then that just makes things get complicated. But here's what the neck cavity looks like. You've got your long neck tenon in here. You can see your sandwich of woods there, so that's a maple center block with a spruce bracing with a maple poplar maple sandwich forming the top, back, and sides. And then while we're looking at all the woods, you can see the maple block that caps off the truss rod right here. However, I wanted to make mention of something that is so ingenious. Normally ES-styled instruments, they're a little bit weird because right up here, follow the curves of the body, you can see it actually slopes in. This is the reason why you can't have a one pickup 335 style instrument. Or if you do, you have to have some sort of a cover over here like the Tom DeLonge's. His is a 333. But because of that, your pickup normally kind of slopes in towards the neck as well, which kind of gives you a slightly unbalanced looking pickup. This one, stock from the factory, they have the pickup ring on backwards than normal, and it completely mitigates that effect. I'm not sure if that's like a 1960 spec or if that's just something that he personally does for his own, so the pickup is level, but that is something that I noticed that was different. Looking over here on the Chuck Berry really shows you guys what I'm talking about. That's how they're normally spec'd out of the factory. Now we go to the bridge pickup cavity. You can see a little bit more of the maple center block right here, and these are our veritone parts. But these ones, unlike the Epiphone, are actually secure. And unlike our Sergio, we have a complete ground wire right here. But both of these covers are beautifully aged. But look at this right here. His original must be really worn on the side because that's one of the key details that all of these will have. It's all roughed up down here. Because just in case you don't know, the aging jobs are generally all going to be a little bit different on these custom shop releases, but when you're making 200 guitars, there's going to be some variances. There's just a few things that every single one has a checklist that it has to have. Like this one, that would be one of them. Those dings that we saw on the side are probably another one on the list. I would imagine maybe something like that, but I haven't seen enough to really say which ones are for sure at this point in time. This lighting angle really shows you all the finish checking that they've got going on here, and they're getting better. Now, every time I say they're getting better, it's usually because I just happen to get a particularly nice looking example. I mean, there's good and bad in every run, and it comes down to personal preference and opinion, but as far as an aged guitar, this one is really convincing in my opinion. I love the wood grain we've got going on. It's all plain maple, which is a lot of interesting characteristics. That kind of looks like a ghosty saying hi, like that's his arm sticking up. But this was pretty heavily checked. You've got your many layers around the body. That's the biggest difference between a 355 and a 335 is the fact that this one pretty much blends Les Paul custom-like elements onto a 335. This is the top dog of the electric Spanish guitars. But now we've got another interesting fact about this one. It's on upside down. So traditionally, an ABR1 is supposed to be mounted like such. The head of the screw should be up here, and this is the way the Nashville bridge is typically done. However, a lot of techs will flip these around because it's easier to adjust the intonation when the screws are facing this way. But this is a factory Bigsby model. You don't have the opportunity to swap it over to a stop bar tailpiece without destroying your investment. But we've got a Bigsby B7 here. You've got two screw holes that secure it into the top of the guitar, which you can see right here. You can also see where the felt pads are already eating away at the finish, but hey, it's either felt pads or scratches. Choose your poison. But they've also aged the bar to the point where there's almost no gold left on it, but you have a decent amount left on the body of it. This particular one is nice and beefy with 4 screws and a strap button. And then the ball end of the strings gets secured there. And then how you get your warble effect is with this little spring. So it just moves where the ball end of the string. So it just moves the strings that are connected to right there. All right, now let's talk controls. 2 volumes, 2 tones, and then you've got your Veritone, which just gives you different resistances in here, which in turn gives you many a different tone. And then we've got our output jack on the front here. But I want to take a second to appreciate these knobs. Do you see how beautifully aged those are? They've even wiped off the whole volume tone labelings on most of them. Like this one right here, it still says tone. But true to the originals, yeah, a lot of play wear will make those fade away. So that was cool to see here. And just how yellow those are. You've also got the thumb bleeders on it. The last to look at here is our pickguard. So it's not real celluloid, because if you use real celluloid, it's going to off-gas, it's going to destroy the guitar. It doesn't quite have that vintage look. I mean, if they would have put like real aged looking celluloid pickguards on these, that would have been crazy, because seriously, just holding this guitar, it feels like a vintage guitar. The only telltale giveaway sign really is this pickguard. But they have aged it a little bit, so it has some yellowing to it. It just doesn't have the faux shrinking effect. Oh man, custom shop, get on that. That'd be cool to see on future guitars. And we saw this a little bit earlier, but 355 guitar TDC, and then our serial number A92600. Oh, in case you're new to the show, I do weird things to guitars like use endoscopes on them so we can see how they're built. And I also upload daily if you're interested in content like this. So what we can see inside here is how they use the curved edge, usually made out of some sort of mahogany, that just kind of braces the top and sides together. And you can see that large block they use. And this is the bass side cutaway that we're looking at right now. But that continues down the entire center of the guitar until we get to where the strap button is inserted in the bottom. And remember when we were talking about the spruce bracing? That's what we're talking about right here. It braces it to the top. And you can see that same phenomenon here on the bottom. I've got to say, for an electric Spanish, this is one of the cleanest ones we've seen in here. Usually you've got glue seeping out everywhere. Go ahead and run in the treble side as well. Similar things on this side, except for, ooh, we can actually see the pickup cavity exits in the wiring, and what you're seeing there is the Veritone switches. And hey, how often can you say, I've seen the underside of the pickguard from the F-hole? Looks like we got the Black Beauty sprayed caps, and just our historic style wiring. And here we can finally see the baritone. Maybe check out that B.B. King Lucille episode to see it a little bit easier, but this is the way that Gibson does it. There's so many wires in here though, it's kind of hard to show it to you for real. But we'll move on from our body to the neck. So this is an ebony fretboard with mother-of-pearl block inlays. However, this particular ebony was actually quite streaky. You had almost like a rosewood look to it in the center, but after I conditioned it, it really just darkened up. Now, if you need to know why they're using streaky ebony on something like this, check out Bob Taylor's video. It's pretty eye-opening. So because of that, I've started to accept streaky ebony is just as cool. It looks like we have pretty standard historic style frets on here, pretty close to medium jumbos, but you've got 22 of those. They measure 0.049 inches tall. And then we've got a nylon nut that measures 1.67 inches. That is a spec I noticed instantly when I held this guitar. It's a little bit of a skinnier nut width here, but then it kind of beefs up a little bit. Not quite as extreme as like your 65 Melody Makers or something like that, but it was definitely noticeably easier to play chords on this guitar. But by the 12th, it's up to 2.04. First fret neck depth measures 0.81, so that's very slim. And it's still slim by the 12th. Wow, 0.9. Here you can see that neck profile at the 1st and 12th fret. I mean, it looks pretty standard C-shape, right? As far as on the spec sheets though, they just call it slim taper. Put that into layman's terms, it really feels like a nice C-shape right here, but a little bit on the smaller side. But then up here by the 12th, it starts to feel closer to a D-shaped neck at the point where, kind of like SG style, but a little bit thicker than those. As far as our headstock, it's got a little bit of aging to it. Have to get it in the light just right so you can see the checking, but not heavily aged, not a lot of missing finish or anything, just nice and yellowed over. We can see our truss rod, how it is from the factory. Here's our stereo truss rod cover, just says stereo. It's the typical historic style one. Now we can finally move on to the backside. Pretty much a lot of the same stuff we saw on the front, including all the finish checking that hopefully you can see right here on the bench. But here you got those dings that we were talking about earlier. There appears to be 3 of them and like a little patch of buckle rash or something. Then you'll notice the binding on the back is 3-ply versus the 7-ply that was on the top. That's usually something you only ever see on these electric Spanishes and sometimes on like the archtop models. But that is a beautifully aged back, and like, you know, the neck definitely has way more wear than any of the rest of this guitar. We can take a quick look around the edges as well. It's got similar finish checking, but nothing too crazy. You might question, hey, why is this so much darker looking than this? Did they use a different finish? No, this is mahogany versus maple. It just makes the finish look different. The finish is the same. So at first I was a little bit unsure about this neck, but now that I've played it a little bit, I've come to really enjoy it. It's not your typical just a plain worn neck. Like right here, you can see what the bare wood looks like. So it's not like they just didn't finish it or they just took the finish off. They've actually really roughed it up. It kind of reminds me of a Sandblasted guitar. You can check out this Stratocaster because we actually have like bits of the wood missing. It's roughed up in a very unique way, which is off-putting at first, but once you really start to play it, it kind of just feels fuzzy. Then we get to the back of the headstock. No fake headstock breaks or anything like that. But remember how I was saying the pickguard's that one giveaway factor that's not true vintage? The other one is the Grover style tuners. That'd be cool if they could get them to reissue the 60s style variation. This is just the modern style. And hey, it looks like they're roughing up the top of the headstock exactly the same way as they did on the neck. It is kind of a chunky guitar though, 9 pounds, 0.5 ounces, which I guess isn't bad for one of these with a Bigsby. But let's go ahead, plug it in and capture some tones. I mean, there's a lot to capture, so I'm gonna do my best to show you everything the baritone is capable of, but let's get on it. All right, let's start off with our simple tones. Baritone's just on your regular position. We'll do neck, middle, and bridge before we get too fancy. Very typical 335, 355-esque tones here. Neck pickup, nice and juicy, liking that for some solo lead tones. Bridge has got the bite. But yeah, it's a really nice round and warm at the same time. And I know the middle position is supposed to be chimey. But this one, again, it's got a nice rounded, warm tone to it. I like it. But anyways, here's Wonderball. Copyright-free Wonderball, that is. Okay, so your baritone, it just takes it from sounding like normal to going all the way super thin. I've always liked position 4 because it kind of gives you a weird mid-boosted tone. It's interesting. And you can also do the same stuff for the bridge, starting in 6, going down to 1. And then the neck. That's before you even play with the tone knobs. Now let's try the Bigsby out. And for good measure, an acoustic tone test. It projects pretty well. Now let's go ahead and kick on some dirt. Yeah, I'd say it rocks with the best of them. And of course you can mess around with the baritone on this as well. I'm only going to do the bridge pickup though. Now that we know all about the new Noel Gallagher signature ES-355, what are my final thoughts on this one? You know, when this was first talked about and then we finally figured out it was $10,000, I was a little bit scared because that's a lot of money for one of these guitars. However, I am absolutely blown away by this thing. Maybe it's because it's my first, 1960 spec'd variation, but I mean, this is way different than the Chuck Berry model. I found the aging to be pretty darn tasteful. There's nothing too over the top on this one until you get to the back of the neck. But that's really what makes this one special, is the feeling of the back of the neck of this one. It just feels like a nice, worn-in, comfortable guitar. Maybe a little bit jarring at first, because most necks you play aren't completely bare and a little bit chewed up on there. I thought the tones were fantastic. I didn't really care too much for playing with the baritone on this one. It's just straight up pickup action for me. I mean, you can do Oasis, you can do rock, you can do whatever you want. But we'll just have to see how desirable these guitars become in the future. But if his acoustic model is any judge of how the future might play, yeah, these are probably only gonna get more expensive. So troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.